Hi everyone, this is Mary. You're in Mary Reads. Welcome back to my channel. I have a new background here and I'll explain why in my next video, the one that's going to be coming next week. So today I decided to tell you about the books that I think are very atmospheric, that will help you get away from reality. And to begin with, let's start with the definition of what the atmospheric book is. It can be any genre. I feel like a lot of times the misunderstanding is that atmospheric books are always these cozy, cute, sweet little stories, but that's not necessarily a thing. It can be a horror story that fully gets you into the atmosphere. It can be a classical novel that fully grasps your attention and just doesn't let you go. It can be any genre. It's just the book that invites you into it and you can't stop reading it, that just covers you with its atmosphere and its story, and you're sitting reading this book for a very long time without stopping and you're just enjoying it. And I decided to tell you about the 10 books that I think are very atmospheric. They're going to be in different genres, again, as I said, but I tried to combine many of those to kind of give you different understandings of what atmospheric books are, and to show you a little bit more what I read and what I find interesting. And the first book that I decided to put into this list is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. And I think that this book is really atmospheric. I was reading it in summer, but I was just thinking that this is definitely a fall or winter book. So the story starts in winter, so it would be perfect for this winter time when it's snowing outside, when it's super cold, because there is actually a scene where our main character is freezing in his room and he's so cold he thinks he's gonna die from it. But even the fall, I think, would be great because we are in the atmosphere of this very dark academia university where this select group of 5 students are studying Greek, where they are discussing all of these philosophical questions. For me, for some reason, this is a very fall atmosphere, and you fully dive into this Greek mythology, intellectuals, select group of students, this very, very dark atmosphere of this private university. And or it might not be private, I might be wrong, but whatever, university, and these ancient Greek rituals that our students try to enact and see what's going to happen to them. So I think this book would be a great way to dive into the atmosphere of this cold, mysterious time, and it will definitely bring you some of the best fall or winter atmosphere you could possibly ask for. The next book is Harry Potter. Everything is very easy here. It's a fairy tale. Fairy tales are very, very often atmospheric. And I just want to say that in this series of books, every book brings something new. You put one book down, you really want to start reading another one. And the atmosphere changes from book to book, but it's definitely very gripping and captivating, and you just can't put the book down. I was rereading Harry Potter this year, and I was just mesmerized by how much nuances I started seeing, something that I haven't seen before, something that I was too little to understand or that I just didn't think was important. And I just really, really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for this very cozy, very wonderful, light, magical atmosphere, try Harry Potter. Obviously, it gets more serious in the later books. Like the full 5th book is discussing politics, literally politics of magical world, which can be very, very similar to our politics today. So it does get more serious, but especially the first, I would say 3 or 4 books are very, very magical. They are perfect for New Year's and Christmas, especially, again, the first couple books, they're discussing this. And I think the atmosphere in these books is just so great. This is probably my favorite atmospheric books. Might be very boring to say that, but I think that these books are the most atmospheric for me. The next book is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I read this book this year, and I read it during the day on purpose because I knew that if I'm starting to read it at night, I'm gonna get scared and I'm not gonna be able to fall asleep. Not that it was so scary I could actually not fall asleep, but it was definitely chilling. This whole atmosphere of 10 people being stuck on an island, knowing that one of them is a killer, a serial killer that is after all of them, that's just scary. And it gets even more scary in the end when there are like two people left with him, with the killer, or when there's just two of them, one killer and one victim. And it's just terrifying. Just imagine how this one person should feel when they know that there's somebody else on this island that is trying to kill them and they need to hide. But the previous 8 people died and there was nothing they could do. So it looks like you're just this animal in a cage and you're just waiting for your fate. It's just a very, very scary story, very atmospheric, amazing, one of my favorite in Agatha Christie, and definitely would recommend it, I think, to anyone. I'm pretty sure it's the book that anyone could be interested in. The next book was one of my favorites last year, maybe even the best of 2023, and it's Sister Carrie by Theodore Dreiser. And for me, it was a very, I knew this feeling because it's about this girl who's coming to, I think it was San Francisco. I might be wrong. Or no, she's coming to Chicago. That's right, Chicago. And she is trying to find a job. She's new to the city. She's earning very little. She lives with her sister, and she realizes that she can't live like that. And that was kind of similar to my experience when I just came to New York. Obviously, I didn't work because I was a student, but it's just the atmosphere was so similar, living in not the best conditions. I started living with my aunt and uncle, then I moved to a room. I was renting out a room, and that definitely wasn't the best place to be in. And you feel lonely, you feel like you're on your own, you feel like your life should be better than what it is now, and you're trying to do something but you don't really know what to do. And it's so interesting to see how she's starting to go through this process of becoming more and more not rich, but confident and understanding what she wants in life. She starts working at a factory, then she meets this guy who introduces her to a higher society, then she meets another man who she falls in love with and marries, but he's rich, but then they move and he's not giving her what she wants. So it's a whole interesting world where she's trying to climb this ladder. And for some of the characters, it's the other way around. They're falling off this ladder, even though they have money, they're losing it. They're losing everything they had. And this contrast between rich and poor, how it changes just like a flick, like a switch, how you can just turn it off and this person's life is so different. This is such a great atmosphere, and I would recommend it to anyone. I haven't read a lot of American classics, but this is, I can say for sure that this one is going to be, if not my favorite, then one of my favorites. And now the book that is actually very light, very cozy. It's called The Tea House on Mulberry Street by Sharon Owens. I think I talked about this book in a coffee talk that I had a couple months ago. I don't remember, but this is just a very cozy story about multiple families. They all live in one town, and they are just talking about their lives. We have a married couple who owns a cafe. We have 2 sisters that are trying to discover who their parents are, I think. So their whole life they're preparing for something grand, and then they think they're of a certain society, and then they realize that their father is not who they thought he was. and so their whole life changes, and they realize that everything was a lie, and they were just not doing what they were supposed to be doing. So it's just a whole bunch of things. Then we have this girl who is an artist. She can't be successful, and her paintings are just not getting any recognition, and she's in love with, I forgot the name of the actor. I can see his face now, but I can't remember his name. So she's in love with this actor, and she keeps writing letters to him, but obviously Nicolas Cage. She's in love with Nicolas Cage, but obviously he's not responding to her. And it's this love that's not being responded to, and not being able to get into the career you want. So we have that line. Then there is another line of this wife finding out that her husband is cheating on her, and she spent 20 years of her life growing their sons, serving her husband, making sure that he goes forward in his career, and basically putting her life on pause just to realize that 20 years later he's cheating on her. So it's this just whole bunch of different little stories, and how these people are trying to get their lives back together, what they're doing to kind of feel better about themselves. It's a very, very cozy little story, definitely something light to read. So if you're looking for something lighter, I would really recommend this book. I usually don't like books like that. I feel like they don't get enough of the plot, and it's too sweet, too vanilla, and we don't get enough development of the characters. But here I actually was pleasantly surprised. I really, really enjoyed it. The next book is Atonement by Ian McEwan, and I talked about this book last month. I read it last month, and I fell in love with this book. I wanted to savor every page. Every word was so delicious and so juicy. I was reading this book for a very long time, and I was just savoring every page. I don't know, it was so good. We are looking at the story through the eyes of different characters, and how differently they see the same situation, how this one event can change lives of so many people, how war destroys lives, and how miserable people become during this war, and how they still have hopes and dreams, and how love is still such an important power even during this time of death, and how there is one thing that can haunt you for years and there's nothing you can do, and how your whole life you can try to do something to pay what you've done 30, 40, 50 years ago, and still you can't repay enough. This book was so sad, so heartbreaking, but so beautiful. In my previous video, somebody mentioned in the comments, I think another book blogger mentioned in the comments, that they love Ian McEwan, but out of all of their books, this is their least favorite one. And I haven't read any other books by Ian McEwan. I definitely want to. So I can't, I don't know what to compare it with, but for me, this was an amazing story. And I loved the movie. I loved the book. I will definitely be rereading it. And I bought this book for my library. I realized that I want to have it, and I definitely would recommend this book. And the next book is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and I couldn't just leave it out of this video because the atmosphere there is crazy. It's amazing. That's literally why I had to stop reading Dostoevsky for multiple years, because the atmosphere was so captivating. I felt like I was in the story, and I got so depressed I couldn't read the author for multiple years, and only now I feel like I'm ready to try again. This is the story about a man committing a crime and being haunted by this crime, and trying to understand how the life works. Why are there people who can commit crimes and they're heroes, and then there are others who can't commit these crimes? Are there people who are better and who are worse? Are there two classes of people? How do you define those classes? So he commits this crime to show that he's of the group of powerful people, and he gets haunted by it. He's slowly going crazy. He's trying to cover this murder because he knows that there are people looking for him. And he, at the same time, he experiences love and attachment that he is not ready for, he doesn't think he deserves. And you just see slowly how he goes crazy, and it feels like you're going crazy with him. And you, even the colors, even the weather play a huge role. For example, the thing that I still remember from my literature classes in 10th grade when we were discussing this novel, his room that he's renting is painted in yellow, and yellow is the color of insanity, and he's surrounded by this yellow. So the author is trying to tell us how his whole life is changing and he's becoming insane, and there's nowhere he can run. It's there with him all the time. And yeah, this book is just so strong and so wonderful. It's definitely a heavy atmosphere to take on, but if you're ready and if you're interested in Russian classics, then this is definitely a must read, and it should be on your list. And the next book is also pretty easy and fun to read, and it's Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. I loved these stories when I was little. I have a couple of favorite ones. I think I talked about one of them in one of my previous videos. I don't remember which one. But if you are looking for a very interesting atmospheric story to read, then definitely Sherlock Holmes is a way to go. You can read all of them, and then you will get this line with Moriarty as well. But you can also just read separate stories. That is also fine. You will get a lot of interesting stories of various lengths. So if you want something shorter, there are shorter stories, then there are longer stories. I loved all of them, absolutely loved all of them. Some of them were actually scary for me. I remember in one of my drawing classes, I was going to an art school, and in one of my classes, we had a long class, like a 3-hour class, and we were listening to an audiobook of Sherlock Holmes about the dancing figures, dancing people, something like that. I don't even know what it's called, don't remember. And I remember getting scared of it. I was like, oh my God, I can't keep listening to this. This is scary. And so I then ended up reading it on my own because I still kept thinking about it. And it was very interesting, very fun. So yeah, there's just not much to say. It's just something that you should absolutely read if you haven't yet. The atmosphere of this, 18th century London, great, just great. This genius detective and a doctor that's not as smart, but who is a very loyal friend and still a very good doctor. Such a great combo. And so many TV shows came out of this iconic classic duo. So definitely read this book. The next one is 1984 by George Orwell. And I think everybody understands why I put this book on the list and why I think it's so atmospheric. We obviously go into a completely different reality. We live in the world where a totalitarian regime rules and where you're being watched constantly. You have to live by certain rules. You lose your freedom. With that, you lose your identity, and you lose all the feelings that people usually feel. There is no love, there is no affection, there is no happiness. You are literally becoming a robot, and you have to hide your thoughts and your emotions very deeply because obviously Big Brother is watching you. I loved the book when I read it. It's definitely terrifying, and I would like to reread it at some point. I know there are a lot of dystopian novels, but this one is probably the most iconic. And you should definitely read it if you are interested in dystopian novels and you're looking for something that you should try with. 1984 is perfect. Probably a boring choice of a book to put on this list, but it really is very atmospheric. You can't ask for more than what you get in Orwell's book. So with the last book that I wanted to mention, I don't even know if I should recommend it to anybody or not, because some people hate this book, some people love this book, and they do it for exactly the same reason. And this book is Jonathan Safran Foer's Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. This is the story of a tragedy of 9/11, and about a boy whose dad dies in one of the Twin Towers, and the boy finds some sort of a clue, and he starts looking for clues to get this big treasure his dad hid from him. And the boy is autistic, I think, so this gives a completely different color to the whole story. And the way this story is written, it's just the format it's written in, it's very, very weird. We get chapters with like a lot of colorful blotches. We have chapters where the sentences just go, it's like this one stream of thought, and we don't have commas or periods or anything. Then there is text that's written like this, very weirdly. And for some people, that's something that gets them into the atmosphere. They feel how this boy thinks, especially as an autistic person. It brings this whole new light to how his thought process works. So for them, this is something that brings them into the atmosphere. For me, for example, and for a lot of other people, this is something that distracts them from the atmosphere. I can't say that I hated the book. It definitely was atmospheric. I could see why it should be, but for me personally, it was distracting. So if you feel like that's something that you enjoy, if you think that this is something that could actually help you, then I would recommend this book for you. But if you are more used to regular, like classic text with sentences, with punctuation, with grammatical rules, then this is something you probably are not going to enjoy. But definitely the atmosphere here is great. Have to admit that. And these were all the books that I wanted to mention today. Thank you so much for staying with me and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know what books you find very atmospheric and what books help you escape reality. And I'll see you soon. Bye bye.